officer or any human being is forming that objective criteria, that belief that they are in fear of pending danger of serious bodily injury or death to themselves or others, it's not just what you see on a given video on Facebook. It's the 911 dispatch in the ear of the officer telling them what is at the scene, that there's a person with a gun, that the gun had been brandished at another individual already, where that person's located, what they're wearing, and what their mood is, their demeanor, if they're angry or have a mental health issue or whatever it might be. All of that is being funneled into the head, into the mind frame, the mindset of that officer. So video doesn't show that, right? That just shows a brief, 15, 30 seconds. Now the body cams maybe will pick up if there was a firearm that was pointed in the direction of anybody. Then certainly you don't have to wait for a bad guy to shoot or anyone to shoot or be shot before you can shoot back. That's not how self-defense works, and it shouldn't. But hopefully the body cams will be able to illuminate just a bit more on what Decatur PD has determined, at least in their statement, that this was a lawful shooting.
And so we're dealing with right now Decatur Police. There's a call for Decatur Police to release the video, but it's not their case at this point to release that video.
So the laws of the state of Alabama do not allow for this type of evidence to be released until, in this case, State Bureau of Investigation finishes its investigation. Now that could carry over into the FBI as well, and so we'll just have to see. But we don't want to, look, our right to know is tempered by getting to justice, right? And so we really have to, as a public, understand that the truth will come out. We'll see everything that the investigators are seeing at some point, whether there's a trial or there's not going to be, and they sort of release the justification for the shooting. But that's not going to happen today. And I would suggest to Decatur PD that maybe there is a time to allow the victim's family to see what those officers saw. But that might be when we're a little bit further down the road with Aaliyah's investigation.
Let's step through that video. So
sure.
The first video that was surfacing was without audio, and there's, I guess, what are your initial thoughts when you saw the video? 38 seconds.
Yeah, it's a very short video. Again, the context of this shoot is much longer than 38 seconds, but you can see the individual did at least face towards officers. There's no doubt that these are officers because he is surrounded by police. It is dark, so mistakes can be made by all those involved, to include the victim. But at the same time, one thing that I think, Marie, is very important that every viewer understand is that if you believe that the tow truck driver is there in error, or that someone's stealing your car, or you're just angry about the cops showing up for what's otherwise a civil offense, comply now, complain later. There is a process to get that truck back. There is a process to complain to the police about what somebody did or about what the police did. The wrong answer every single time is to have a gun in your hand when police show up. The wrong answer every single time is to raise that arm with the gun in it or to give any threatening gesture. Because our police officers are put in these positions constantly, and they are not going to sacrifice their lives simply because we want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. The benefit of the doubt stops the minute that a police officer says, stop what you're doing, put your gun down, be peaceful, and the minute that stops or starts to be a much more aggressive situation, especially when you're involving firearms, a lot of them end this way.
In the video, we see the flash, right? Decatur Police said he had a handgun with a light on it. Is there anything telling from this? Is there anything that investigators can gather? Did he fire a shot? Could it have been the flashlight on the gun? Just that moment right there.
Well, you can see the flashlight in the video, right? It's ambient in the video because this is a night filtered camera, and so you can see there in the sort of the top quadrant of the screen where there is something in his hand that has a flashlight on it. Again, if we can see the flashlight, remember the pistol is here and the flashlight is here. If we can see the light on the firearm, that means the firearm is pointed up. So that is, I think, something investigators will certainly look at who it was pointed at. But just the fact that that muzzle is raised is a problem that police face too often. And a lot of times it's going to end with deadly force being used because it takes nanoseconds to point that weapon in a way that is going to be deadly to an officer or others.
So then this next video, excuse me, was released just this morning, and it has audio to it. It's the same video that we have, that we've been looking at, but it shows, I guess, just how quickly, and I know you haven't seen this up until this point or heard it, so here, I don't know.
So I counted 18 shots, maybe 19. There was an announcement just before the shooting, but people should not get too wrapped around the axle about the amount of time. You don't have to even announce that you're a police officer. If the threat is imminent, the threat is imminent. That's probably more muscle memory than anything. Before you pull your trigger, you are trained as an officer to announce yourself as a police officer, to drop the gun, whatever it might be. The fact that it happened so quickly, that there wasn't an exchange of words, of trained verbiage by the officer, does at least tell me that that officer immediately felt a threat, such that he had to respond with firing before he could even get out simple phrases that every officer is trained to say to try to reduce a threat. And so I think, look, we need to wait. There's no doubt we all need to wait until Decatur PD and the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, that those investigators can do what they do. They're professionals. They do this all over the state. This happens everywhere. And I think that we will learn more from them. I don't want to look at these videos and say DPD did the right thing. I also don't want to look at these videos and say it was a bad shoot. I think both would be unfair conclusions. Now, I've seen enough of these videos in my career to sort of have an idea, an informed judgment. But until I see it all, that judgment is not completely informed. So let the investigators play this out. Everybody, if you want to protest, stay peaceful. You don't know any more than I do, and I know more than you do just because of my experience. And I'm not saying you, but I'm saying to the viewers. So let's all just take a pause and let professionals handle this. And then when we find out the final information, I think that we'll just have to accept what the results are of that, whether they be, favorable to DPD or to the victim's family. But there is a lot in this video that certainly if your son was a police officer and arrived on this scene, there's a lot here to be concerned about his health and well-being and his safety. And again, if the individual involved, Mr. Perkins, would have just simply dealt with police in a more rational fashion, not had a firearm in his hand, always a bad idea to have a firearm in your hand when you're dealing with the police who also have firearms, then he'd be alive to tell this story today, more than likely.
Is it possible, too, that audio could have been edited? Any pauses or exchanges?
Yeah, it's a TikTok video. I don't know anything about who posted this video, and certainly there's not been a forensic review of it. I would say that, the 18, 19 shots, the statements that have come out from Decatur Police, that's about how many shots there were. But yeah, this could be edited. None of us know, and that's why I think the body cams are going to be the most telling, because you really can timestamp all of it. You can match up all the actions of Mr. Perkins after police arrive. There might have even been, going back before the shooting began, more announcements by police, or at least it was very obvious where Mr. Perkins was standing, that a police car had pulled up just across the street, so he didn't think he was being robbed or burgled, that this was clearly an intervention by law enforcement. And that's when, again, people need to understand you need to comply now and complain later. You will live every time.